Welcome to the next episode of Brandland. I'm Garrett, and today I'm joined by Tali Thomason, who's the Director of Marketing, Communication, and Events at the University of Denver's School of Engineering and Computer Science. Did I get it right, Tali?
That's it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. How are things out in Denver right now?
It's good. It's getting cold, but that's par for the course. And things on campus are starting to see a lot more activity. So that's exciting.
That's good. That's good to hear. I know, universities especially is one of those with the pandemic this last year that just saw a drop in that activity. So it's good to hear that coming back. I'm curious. So the University of Denver there, it sounds like you're doing kind of a hybrid program where you have some students on campus, some remote still. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. Especially with our lab focused coursework, a lot of those are really more beneficial to be in person and almost real challenge to do remote, but then we have a lot of courses that are remote, and then we have the hybrid option. So any course that's available in person is also available via Zoom.
Love it. Well, I'm glad to hear that's, it's great to hear that we're starting to get some of that back to normal pre-pandemic. And so love hearing that. Well, Tali, I'm excited to dive into our topic today. But again, before we do, the typical format for these, we'd love to hear just a little bit more about your background and your career and what the School of Engineering and Computer Science is like there at the University of Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I graduated from college in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in communications and public relations. And since then, I have worked for Fortune 500 companies. I worked for a family-owned business. I started really heavy in events when I first got out of college. And coincidentally, my first out of college full-time job was at DU. I was working for the catering company in the arena. So assistant catering manager and feeding our hockey team and such. And so it was really cool when I got the opportunity to return to the university in 2017 and take all that experience from my past 20 years of either the events, and then I moved more into event marketing and then more marketing and business development and communications. So I'm lucky to be here. I love the College of Engineering, or rather we're a school, but School of Engineering and Computer Science. It's a really innovative and amazing space to work. And what I really like about the curriculum here is that we really teach really strong foundational knowledge that empowers the students and enables them to come up against the current trends. We have degrees in data science and cybersecurity, and then there's also a lot of short-term become a data scientist in 3 weeks groups out there. And so while we're competing with those trends and such, the foundational knowledge and the helping people activate their entrepreneurial mindset and innovation, I think, are real hallmarks of what we do here.
Yeah, that's excellent. So 2 questions for you that just sparks for me. The first is I'm curious what that transition was like. What are the biggest changes from working in, big companies, you said small companies, and then at a university level. So coming into that university role, what were some of the biggest eye-opening things or differences from some of those previous experiences you had?
Sure. Yeah. So I was amazed at how little red tape and bureaucracy there is here. I mean, there's a fair share, it's a university system, but each of the academic units almost operates almost like its own business. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And then I had never been in a situation where employees are so starkly in different categories. So you have faculty and you have staff. And it's just interesting because, faculty and staff, they all have different needs as far as time requirements go, who they're working with, what's happening. And so it's been really interesting to learn those collaboration skills with our faculty. And I just love working with the students. A lot of people in my role don't necessarily get out and do as much with the students as I do, but I love the storytelling, and I was able to get involved with our Assistant Director of Student Services to help guide our student clubs and organizations into promoting themselves and planning their events. And I am really, I'm just in love with being around those students. And this is a really cool year for me. It's really hard with COVID, but
Yeah.
this class graduating this year, we were freshmen together, basically. We both started around the same time here. And so they're going to be leaving, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I can see how, that vibrancy and excitement that so often students have could just be, infectious. So I totally get that. So the next question I have for you before we really dive into the topic here is, what is it like being the marketing person in the School of Engineering and Computer Science? Again, like you think about disciplines that could be by many viewed as opposites, right? Like you have marketing and typically creative, and then you have a School of Engineering and Computer Science. What's that experience been like for you?
Intimidating at first, for sure. I work with some really brilliant people, and sometimes it took a while. Like I really had to be like, okay, I need you to explain this to me like you would a 5-year-old. Until I kind of got up to speed on the terminology and the differences between mechanical and materials engineering versus electrical engineering, and so on and so forth. But it's been really, I think, really good. And I think that I was really fortunate to earn the Staff Member of the Year award a few years ago. And I was actually
Congrats.
nominated. Thank you. I was nominated by faculty who really, I got to see the nominations, of course, because I managed that process, which was a little weird, but they get it. We worked enough collaboratively, and even if they don't understand my day-to-day, I would expect them to. They understand the passion that I have for the work. They understand that we all care about the students, and they had some really nice things to say. And for me, that's one of my biggest achievements here, other than creating a baby Yoda for our chancellor.
Love it. I love it. That sounds like an excellent story. I would love to dive into that at some point too. So maybe we'll have to do a follow-up here and just dedicate an episode to that. So, before we dive into this, I think that this is, a perfect segue into our topic today, but just to kind of build on what you just said here before we really dive into it, what has helped you the most in helping educate faculty and staff there, who I assume, mostly come from this engineering and computer science background? What has helped you the most in educating them on what marketing is and why it's important and valuable?
Sure. So twofold, I think. We are blessed to have a really nice combination of strictly academic faculty who have never worked in the industry, but we have a few who do. And so leveraging those partnerships, getting to know those industry background faculty a little better. They are a little more used to the marketing jargon, understanding what it means to be working with the director of marketing and communications. And so, making those relationships and then kind of earning a little street cred, for lack of a better word, with the faculty who respect those faculty. And so, they're a little easier to communicate with and to have that buy-in with them. And then I would say the other thing is, in the last couple of years, we have hired some considerably younger faculty who are, this is either their first or second teaching position, and they have grown up with the internet. They have grown up with social media. They're really good at understanding just like personal brand. And even if they don't know that that's what they know, they're totally leveraging it. So, being able to share what they share, and then faculty who have been a little resistant might be like, well, why is Dr. So-and-so getting this? And I'm like, well, because she tells me what she's doing and we talk, and, she helps me, and we have a really good partnership. And so that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent insight for, so many across every industry, as you start to see new generations and, the influx of, millennials, and then those next groups continue to come in to the workforce. What is it that they grew up with? What's the context there? And I think for marketers and those of us trying to build brands out there, hopefully it continues to get even easier and easier, because like what you said, so many of those people grew up with social media and the internet, and they inherently get the value of building, a strong brand. So awesome. I think that's a perfect segue into our topic today. So as you and I were talking about what do we discuss today, you kind of proposed this idea of empowering employees versus policing them, right? And how do you build that consistent brand at scale? And I think this is a super awesome, relevant topic. I did a webinar earlier this morning where part of what we talked about is exactly this, how, personally, I believe that one of the biggest shifts and changes that we're seeing with regards to building strong brands and doing marketing at scale and being able to create all of the content that we need to today effectively is by empowering employees, where traditionally in the past, so many marketing departments have locked stuff down. I like to call it the brand prison, where they said, hey, we're the experts on the brand and the marketing and the design. Send us your request. We'll do it for you. And of course, that policing, isn't scalable, doesn't work today. So, I guess with that context, tell us a little bit more about your experience with this empowering employees versus policing. What have been the biggest challenges and what has influenced your decision to really move towards a model of brand empowerment?
Well, the biggest driver, honestly, is I have a very small team. It is myself. I have a part-time videographer, and I have a full-time coordinator who is focused on digital marketing and social media. But that's it. It's us three, and it's a lot to do. And I like sleeping. I like not working until, midnight and 2 a.m. every night. And so, when you're in a situation where hiring more or having to hire freelancers all the time to be able to complete workload is not sustainable, you come up with solutions. And what I figured out was, get everyone engaged and get them feeling like they are not only a part of the brand, but that they have a stake in it and some ownership. And that, that was really helpful.
I love that. And Tali, you know what? I've one of the things I've enjoyed in my time at Lucid Press and with this podcast is just being able to connect with marketing and creative leaders like yourself. And that's one of the biggest things I've noticed over the last few years of doing that, marketers and creatives today realize that it's not sustainable. And even if you have a team of 3 or a team of 200, there's always going to be more content that you need to produce than time able to do it. And so I love that, you're seeing that and you're changing that kind of traditional mindset and instead empowering employees to help in that process of building a brand. So I guess I want to break that down a little bit more because I'm curious, what does brand mean to your colleagues in other roles, right? I think that often there's kind of a disconnect. Brand can be a very big, broad term. So when it comes to brand and when it comes to marketing, how do you help colleagues, especially those, again, that come from the engineering and computer science background, understand what marketing and brand building is and why they should want to contribute?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times marketing and brand, if you don't work in the space, they get confused with sales. And, we have faculty who are doing amazing research. They're working with students. Like, they don't want to learn how to sell things, and they don't, that's just not their thing. And I'm like, yeah, cool, me either. I'm not a salesperson. But, helping them understand that the model for education is changing. Higher education is not as affordable as it used to be. In some ways, it's a lot more accessible. In other ways, it's not. And we have untraditional competition. Like, I previously mentioned, there's, kind of boot camps and shorter online ways where people can learn and educate themselves. So we have to not only talk about what we do, but talk about how we're making the world a better place by doing this work and find our tribe find the people who are going to succeed and thrive in our programs. And so, talking about the quality of prospective students and, both in the graduate and undergraduate space, as well as quality of prospective colleagues and faculty that we can attract. We also have a new dean starting on Monday. And so we have to tell that story so that we can keep teaching the students we want to have here who are really going to thrive in this more traditional kind of setting that is adapting, but not, at a light speed pace, and attract good people to work with. And I think one of the most helpful things I did is I connected with a woman by the name of Ann Merchant. She is the Assistant Deputy Director with the National Academies for Science, Medicine, and Engineering, and she runs the Scientific and Communication Exchange. And I met her at a conference and brought her back to campus like a year and a half later. Right, it was actually right before the pandemic really hit it. But I had the greatest attendance for this guest speaker, and to really talk about storytelling and to talk about pop culture and how, engineers and doctors are being interviewed, before they do everything that they do on Grey's Anatomy or another program, and how we can be informing the current culture and engage people in that way versus just saying, oh, it's always wrong in media, we can make a difference that way. And so I think that really unlocked a lot more interest around storytelling as well.
Oh, that's so interesting. And it sounds like an awesome, super impactful, tactic to just get people opening their eyes, right? And then so you can help educate them later on. So I guess on that topic too, did you come into this role knowing that you wanted to focus on empowering everyone to help with that marketing or brand building? Or was there kind of a moment where you decided, hey, I'm going to need to focus more on empowerment? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So when I started, I was hired in as a marketing manager, and we had an event manager. And we were both working both for the School of Engineering and Computer Science, as well as a program called Project Excite, which was the cross-disciplinary innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship kind of incubator on campus. And he left, and we had to reorg, and it was a good time for me to just focus solely on the school. And this was about only 8 months into my work here. And so that's when I got promoted to that bigger umbrella of marketing, communications, and events. But that also freed me up to expand, because before I was like half time with each of the different units. And so it was like, just do what you need to do at the kind of minimum, because that was what was realistic. But then once I was able to focus on one unit and really flesh out a fuller marketing and communication strategic plan, I kind of realized that even with the team that I have, this is not going to be enough to keep moving forward. We're still just kind of going to be at, treading water. And so we had to come up with some different tools. The other thing that was really useful is I hired a bunch of student workers. I have anywhere generally between 3 to 8 student workers, and they need a lot more guidance, of course, because they are all under 22. And I knew that it's kind of in that situation where you can either teach somebody to do something for themselves, or you can do it yourself, or you can micromanage them. And I knew I didn't want to micromanage them. And I knew I couldn't do it all myself. So I needed to come up with tools that were empowering for those student workers. And then it was easy to scale from there to flesh that out to our bigger unit, to the faculty and staff.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I guess, where did you start? Like, how did you start creating a brand for, this department that colleagues wanted to leverage and wanted to help build, even though they didn't come from that marketing and branding background?
Sure. So of course, the university as a whole has a brand guide. We have, visual guides and communication style guides. But that is, if this isn't your world, that is a very intimidating document. It's It's thick. If you print it out, it's about that big. It's a lot to plow through. So I thought about that. I also thought about the fact that we have a very robust color scheme with our main colors as well as the ancillary colors that we can use. They do not look good in the wrong hands though. So I had to think about how can I pare this down and
Mhm.
how can I make this feel more user friendly. So we took a look at everything that was working well with the overall brand as we apply it to our school and then scale back. So we picked 3 of those accent colors instead of all 6. We highlighted
Mhm.
what the fonts were and we made sure everybody had the font files. And then we started talking a lot about tone and I had different conversations with faculty, with departments, and kind of did little brand studies, which I'm actually reiterating again right now with each of the department. And how is computer science different from electrical and computer engineering, and mechanical and materials engineering? And got to a place where I kind of really understood what were the commonalities and what were the key different differentiators. And just kind of started throwing that language into different meetings and
Mhm.
using that. And then people, picked up. So it was pretty subtle. It wasn't like, I'm going to empower everybody to use the
Yeah.
brand. It was more, bringing the language, bringing the culture, creating that smaller abbreviated brand guide, but also really helping them understand like how we talk about our students versus how our School of Business talks about their students and their programs, or School of Social Work are different. And we don't have to try to mirror them at all, but we need to find that cohesive place. And so maintain the cohesion, but give them the power for expression, because every
Yeah.
faculty is going to have a little different idea about what it is that they do
Mhm.
and what's the best part of our programs. Some will say, we have a really robust senior design experience in engineering. That capstone program is our big thing. Others, it's the small class sizes or the office hours or the clubs. And so letting them have that heart piece for them, and then having kind of the brick and mortar basic stuff that's cohesive. I used to teach yoga. And
Mhm.
so this is going to sound like a weird tangent, but when you talk about adjusting people in yoga poses, you adjust the foundation and then
Mhm.
you let them have the freedom. So
Mhm.
if somebody's in a warrior pose like this, I worry about their feet. I don't worry about whether their arms are in perfect alignment. And so it's, give them the roots so they can rise.
I love that. Excellent, excellent examples. One of the things I love about that so much is it sounds like, you were teaching them about what a brand really is, not by using lingo that they would get hung up on. You don't necessarily have to say, here's the definition of a brand, here's why we need to do it, right? You're just helping them understand who are we at our core and how do we want to help people understand what makes us unique and different and why they should care, why they should come to take some of our classes or pick a major in our college or whatever it is, right? I love that example because I think that that's just so key, that sometimes people, especially not in marketing, get so hung up on terms or whatever it is, right? Because again, brand can be such a big term, marketing can be so all encompassing, but at its core, really, it's just helping people understand who we are and why they should care, right? And so I love that you're able to do that through that example of just having those conversations with people. So my next question for you then, Tally, is, I think the elephant in the room that maybe many of our listeners might be thinking is, but if you're not going to be policing your brand, how do you ensure that stuff is consistent? So how did you think about that as you decided you needed to focus more on empowerment than policing? What was that balance for you, and what has that been like in ensuring that you're still building a cohesive, consistent brand?
Yeah, I think choosing your battles is really important to keep your eye on the prize, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, and
Mm-hmm.
to stay um, moving forward. And so I look at, if somebody sends out an internal document that's using a tone that's not quite us, and, or they use a PowerPoint template that we retired, 3 years ago or something like that, I think about what's the big impact. If this is an internal document only and it's not outward facing, I I just choose not to care. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to damage and ruin any progress I've made or relationships by over critiquing and such.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the other thing is to make the tools easily accessible is is a big piece of that. And I will have people email me the link, can you send me that link again, or can you do this again? And I always say, yep, absolutely. And here's where you can bookmark it. And then the next time when that person emails me in 3 more weeks, it's yes, absolutely. And here's where you can bookmark it. Because
Mhm.
if I get into I sent you this 3 weeks ago, you need to bookmark it. That's not helping anybody. And so
Right.
really trying to be in that spirit of service and choosing those battles well.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. And, often, we can get frustrated, if those requests keep coming and keep coming. But what I love about what you said is, you're focusing on the bigger prize. As long as you continue providing the tools and the resources and continuing to educate people on why this is important and how they can contribute, eventually you're going to get to that place as an organization where you have that buy-in, you have everyone contributing to building, and they're doing it in a way that is consistent. And that is so much more powerful and so much more scalable than, again, those other options of trying to do it all on your own, or, whatever it is that, it just isn't scalable in that manner. So.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well that I need their feedback, especially when we're looking at communications tools. So email signature, email header, PowerPoint templates, report templates. If something's not working for them, I want them to come and tell me and
Mhm.
work together to develop something that they can use that will work better for them, and staying in that spirit of our brand. And the other option is, if I'm unapproachable, if I'm difficult, they're just going to go do whatever and not tell me. And
Mhm.
so keeping that communication is super important.
Yeah, it's such a great point. So this has been awesome. Tali, how would you recommend, if there's listeners out there who think, well, how do I get started down this path of brand empowerment, instead of brand policing? What would be your recommendations? Where did you start kind of down this path?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with the bite-sized style guide and just kind of threw it out there via, our email list. And hey, this is this, and here it is for you. If you have questions, let's talk through it. And questions actually did come up, and that was really helpful. And then I send that out about twice a year if I make any changes, but I try to just send it out as a reminder on a regular basis, and that keeps that conversation going. And then ease, right, is the biggest thing. You can't um, putting things that are hard to access or behind like really heavy firewalls or things of that nature is just nobody's going to use the tools you provide if you do that. So leveraging template management system like Lucid, being able to have my mobile phone and my signature so that anybody can text me anytime, especially um, in this, some of us are working here, some of us are working from
Yeah.
home, and some days I'm doing both, just
Yeah.
depending, making sure that I stay accessible, and also really communicating how much time is realistic for me, because I give a lot of tools for them to be able to create flyers, create presentations, and do what have you on their own. But when it does come to things like our weekly student newsletter, that comes out through my department. There's no way around that. And so I
Mhm.
have clear set guidelines of, this is what I need things for that to make the Monday newsletter. And if you want a communication to go out to alumni, this is the steps that we have to do. So this is when I need it so I can take it to our advancement group, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So it sounds like starts with that, simplified version of those brand guidelines, style guide that they can understand. Then you create templates and assets and resources to help them, empower them, and then help them understand which pieces are coming from you and your department and which ones they can go ahead and create on their own. It sounds like a great framework to just kind of roll this out and get started. Awesome. Well, Tali, this has been such an excellent conversation. I appreciate you sharing your experiences and your insights with us. If there are listeners who'd like to get in touch with you or have follow-up questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm tally.thomason@du.edu, and you can also find me tallythomason.com. So from there, I'm pretty much Tali Thomason everywhere, all social media. So I'm easy to find.
Perfect. Well, I'd encourage you to reach out to Tali if you have further questions or want to connect with her. Tali, thanks again so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, Garrett. You too.